And good evening and welcome to the Modern Mystic radio show. My name is Sarah. I'm your host. I'm going to be with you for the next 30 minutes. I'll be going back to back with your readings as well. So I'll be taking two callers a little bit later. And just to remind you of how you can get hold of me, you can get hold of me via my website, which is www.modern-mystic.co.uk, or you can get hold of me via Facebook. I have two pages, one called Modern Mystic, and the other one is called Mystic Saira, which is my name known over here on TV in the UK. So you can get through to me on either of those. On the Mystic Saira page, I do a weekly, or try to do a weekly Facebook Live session as well. So you can join in with that. It's absolutely free. You can send in your questions on the live video. Okay, right. So like I said, we'll be taking two callers. But before I do that, I just want to go through a few of my tools. Some of the different ones as well that I use, just to give you a little bit more insight into how I work. So as you're probably well aware, I've been working as a professional psychic for it's now 28 years. It's gone very quickly. I started at the tender age of 17. And this really was triggered off by my first ever professional reading that I received. And I was so impressed and loved it so much that I actually asked a woman to teach me. And she came over to my house, and it was very simple, really. I was expecting weeks of tuition, and she just shuffled the cards, handed them to me. And she said, "You can already do this, just do me a reading." So that's how I started. I did a very rusty reading. Within a month of that, she had me working at psychic fairs alongside her. So these are the cards that she first gave me, and these are the cards that she worked with. I'm just going to show them to you. Now, these are called the Psy cards. They're not actually the tarot. Some of them are a little similar to the tarot. There's 40 of the cards in the pack, and basically, they're very simplistic to look at. They don't have a huge amount of detail, don't really tell a story like the tarot do. So this is where you've got to kind of piece everything together, and this is what I tend to use quite a lot in my teaching, particularly if we're looking at tarot, because what people tend to get stuck with is reading one card at a time and not really looking at the bigger picture and not really tuning into the cards as a whole. So this is a great teaching tool. So what I would do, just explain how I would work with these, and these are my favourite tool, and these are the original deck, 28 years old. And what I would do is lay out all of the cards, all 40 of them, in big long strips in front of me, and that provides me with an entire picture of somebody's life. And what I like about these is I get time frames. They show me the seasons. They show me all the major areas of one's life. They talk about, love, home, family, work, money, absolutely every area of life. And so I lay them all out in front of me. That gives me the big picture. And then what will happen is that things will start to flash up in front of me, or cards. I get drawn to a specific card, and that's where I start off, and then I start sort of doing the reading. Now, also what I have with me are my tarot, which is, a little bit more sort of in-depth, many, many more cards. And I work with these again in a slightly different way. When I first started off using the tarot, I would practice with different spreads, the Celtic cross and the 12-month readings, 12-month spread, that kind of thing. Nowadays, what I do is I just purely use them as a focus, and I rely on my guides to kind of give me the information. And what I would do is just lay a few out, normally in a bit of a sort of diamond shape, and then do my reading from that point. I can also do different types of readings. I can do readings using your first name, and if you have a partner, I can look at the compatibility there and perhaps issues around yourself and your partner using both of your first names. So I'll pull out a card per letter of your name. I use the same sort of concept within business readings as well. So I will use a card per letter of the business name, and actually to be able to do a forecast on the business, how it's going to perform, etc., etc. And also, it's quite useful for when people are selecting their business name. Quite often, when I'm looking at the areas of business, I will pull out the name and have a look at that, and actually sometimes even suggest an alternative name as well. Okay, so those are the cards that I use. Now, I also work with the Akashic records, and the way in which I sort of tune into those, and there are various ways of working with the Akashic realm, but I use something that's called a cathedral library, which is a library of light. I'm just going to show it. It's a big crystal that I use. Okay, I'm just going to get that out now. Okay, so this is what I use. Now, I don't know whether you can see that, but at the very front there is like a little doorway here. And actually, when I've got the crystal in front of me, I rub the doorway with my thumb as I'm tuning into the crystal, and I go into the Akashic records. I request to see your record, and I work with that. And, with the Akashic record readings, we are looking at, much deeper aspects. So we wouldn't necessarily be looking at, what's going to be happening with work necessarily. We'll be looking at far more sort of soul-based kind of work. So we'll be looking at life purpose, for instance, and soul pathway. Past lives sometimes come into that as well. We look at soul connections, soul contracts, soulmates as well. I do a lot of work within, the whole soulmate twin flame area, and this is an area that I kind of just fell into. It's not necessarily an area that I have specifically gone out to seek, so what I found with my readings, this is a few years ago, is that everything was like soulmate orientated, and I have been dubbed the soulmate psychic here in the UK. Okay, so that's how I work with the Akashic records. So I just want to show you some other tools that I use that I feel, are relatively unique and different. I just want to sort of give you that insight into how I actually tune into these things. Okay, so what I've got here is my tools, and basically what I do is I just hold the mirror in front of me like this, and I gaze upon the reflective surface, and that allows me to just start picking up images and references, normally quite symbolic. And then I sort of use that information and work with my guides in terms of the interpretation. Now, this is very similar to working with a crystal ball, for instance. Whole two ways in which I will adopt scrying. So number one is looking at the reflective surface, but there is another way, and sometimes I use this, and that's to go deep within, almost like project your consciousness into the crystal, deep into the crystal, almost like into the center of it, and then it's like I kind of get a great big screen in front of me, and again I start picking up all of those images. Okay, so that's my obsidian mirror. Now I do also have with me my pendulum kit, so I'm just going to show that to you here. Okay, so this is a chakra pendulum kit. Now I work with this in a couple of different ways. Okay, so as you'll see, you have the casing, you have the pendulum here, and I also have crystals representing the 7 chakras. Now what I can do is this is either in a healing session or within a reading, is actually what I'll ask them to do is either hold the crystals, so just place their hand on the crystals. If it's a remote reading, that's something that I will kind of do for that person with the intention of reading their chakras. And this is how you work remotely, just in case you're wondering. So if you kind of wonder, well, how does that work? You can understand how a face-to-face reading would work. You shuffle the cards and your energies on the cards, and therefore, that person can do the reading. So how does it work remotely? When I work remotely, whether it's shuffling the cards or what have you, I literally have the intention of, this is not a reading for myself, these are not cards for myself, these are cards for that particular person that I'm reading for. And as I shuffle the cards, I'm putting that intention in there, and that's how it works for me. Okay, right, so what I would do is place a crystal in this, seal it up, and then start the pendulum going. Okay, let's just seal that one up. So let's just look at the heart chakra for myself. Okay, so here we go. And depending on how the pendulum moves, it will give me indications as to how that chakra point is functioning. So if it's very still, or if it's going from side to side, as you can see with my heart chakra, it's spinning quite nicely. There we have it. So I feel like everything is all good in that chakra point. It's beginning to go faster and faster as well. Pendulum work, I do have a normal pendulum as well. So that can be, again, quite fascinating, because you can work with time frames and initials and all sorts of different things. Okay, so that's the pendulum kit. So like I said, I either work with it in terms of a reading, tuning into perhaps a different, each chakra point and seeing what I get there, or even within a healing session as well. Okay, right, so I'm going to put that to one side. And finally, what I do have with me are my skeleton keys. And again, this is relatively unique to me. Okay. Right, let's have a look here. Right, so I'm just going to show you the skeleton keys. Okay, so this is my latest and my most favourite. It's a huge key. So that's one of them. Okay, so skeleton keys, if I just explain, are there to unlock any door, or all doors, should I say. Okay, and here we have another one. I'm just going to show you the last one that I have, which is here. So what I normally do with these is I get people to select a key and then focus in on that, and I'll do a reading using the keys. And like I said, primarily, the aim is to find out what is blocked for that person, what's locked away, and opening up that doorway for them, so whether that's perhaps the key to love, or the key to success, or the key to happiness, those are the aspects that I use the keys for. Also, I do use them, for personal development as well. Okay, so if there's an area that I feel is blocked, I'll meditate with the keys and see if I can unlock it. Okay. Right, so I am going to go on to my first caller, and I have Pamela in Worcester, England. Hi, Pamela, are you there?
Yeah.
Hi, how are you? And welcome to the show.
Thank you.
What would you like me to look at for you?
Well, I've had a lot of bad luck lately. I wanted to know how things is going to be turning out for me in the next, few months, really.
Right, okay, let's have a look. So I'm just sort of tuning into your energy, and I feel like last year as a whole was a bit of a non-starter for you. Is that right?
Yeah.
I feel, oh dear. Let me just see what the cards have to say, because I just feel that I do feel like you're coming out of it, and I feel like I'm being drawn towards, let's see what the cards have to say. I am being drawn more towards I want to say February onwards. I want to say about a month. I'm being told about a month here before you start to see some of the positive changes that are coming in. It's like your life has needed to be, thoroughly dismantled. If I look at the energy of last year, it feels like lots of things were kind of falling apart and falling away. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Yeah. And I feel like for a little bit of time, probably about 1 to 2 months, you've kind of been in transition, coming out of that and moving. It's an area of stillness as we, if you like, as the universe allows us a little bit of time to adjust. Now, I just want to tune into some of the aspects that I feel are coming in. One of the things that you've kind of been questioning, what I kind of want to say here, you're very sensitive as a person, and I feel like in some respects you can be quite self-critical as well. You're quite hard on yourself, and I feel like there's a lot of pressure as well that falls on your shoulders. And all I can see here is that you've been working really, really, really hard, and still it feels like you're faced with, you're faced with these blocks. Let's just have a look and see what I get here, because what I have got with you is it's like everything is still up in the air. Your energy is still up in the air, and you haven't quite decided which. Where you want to, or how you want to see yourself, if that makes sense, and where you want to see yourself. And I feel, as I'm looking at this year, like I said, even within sort of the first, the next month that we're coming into, I'm beginning to see movement forwards, and quite a lot of positive change. I feel like I want to be drawn towards work and finances here with you, because I feel like the finances have been, what I'm being shown here is in one hand, out of the other. Does that make sense?
Too much. That's gone on for the last 2 years. There's been two things, one after the other, within 18 months. So that's not me. Not just finances, but not me about altogether.
Sorry, say that last bit.
Two things in 18 months.
Yeah, I mean, what I feel with you is that, yes, we've got that aspect coming in, on the financial side of it, but I see a financial improvement. That's why I'm mentioning it. But if we're looking at the emotional level, that seems to be everything has hit you on an emotional level. If I look at last year, does that make sense? What I feel here are, big areas of, I'm getting upheaval, the word upheaval coming in, and having to be, having to start again. Does that make sense? Yeah? Yeah, having to start again. But it's almost like the first aspect that I get changing is around sort of the work and finance area. And then I feel I've got more of the emotional side of it coming in by the month of May. Okay. So that's when you're going to start to feel it's almost like a progressive energy pushing through, almost like every aspect of your life. And I feel like I've got more of a sort of like settled period here for you. You're also very empathic, very sensitive and very intuitive, and I feel like I've got that really starting to unfold for you as I look at this coming year. It's almost, I feel like, if I look at the changes that are coming in, like I said, I feel like it's probably impacting the majority, all areas of your life. So love, family, home, finances and work. I feel like all those areas are actually shifting and changing. But I'm also being shown here, particularly when I'm looking at the home area, that shift and change is actually coming in a longer period of time, within 2 years. But I do feel here that from next month, that's when you're going to start to see a lift and you're going to start to feel the sun shining on you again. You know, hard work pays off, and you've put in the hard work. That's what I want to say.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Thank you very much for coming through.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. So I'm going to have to go on to my next caller. This is, excuse me, Beth from, is it Indianola, Iowa? Is that?
Yeah.
Hi. How are you?
I'm all right.
Excellent. And thank you. Welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us. What would you like me to look at for you?
Finances, career,
Okay.
family.
Right. I'm just going to give the cards a bit of a shuffle. And let's just see what we have. Right. I'm pulling out some cards for you. Right. Okay. So if I look at excuse me, work for you, work, career, finances. Right, what I'm being shown here is I'm being given around, I want to say within 2 months. I was going to say 3 months, but I want to bring it back to 2 months. There is a career or a job change coming in, okay, that I do feel in terms of the finances, I'm seeing a much better situation coming in. What I'm being shown here is almost like unnecessary or unexpected payouts in the sense that you've had to, things have gone wrong, and I feel like even though things should have been a little bit more balanced when I'm looking at the finances, I feel like I've got unexpected things coming in which have put you back. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. There seems to be some area of conflict around work at the moment.
Actually, the conflict with work has been going along for a long time.
The conflict's been going on for a long time?
Yes.
Right. What I'm being shown here with this, I feel like I've got things coming to a head with that. And I feel that ultimately you're going to be making quite a big decision around the work area. And what I do feel for you is I'm being shown here, a new beginning coming in for you, which is actually going to be better for you, not just for the career side of it, but also for, financial side of it as well. I feel like I've got financial betterment coming in. I also feel that, there's the element here of being unfairly treated.
Yes, I have been,
Yeah. And I feel that that's one of the reasons why I feel like I've got you shifting and coming out of where you are. But it's not, I want you to kind of approach this, that you are going on to something much, much bigger and better. Okay, you're not going to have to settle for second best. And your work situation, I feel, how can I put it? The only way to kind of shift and change this is to change the job and take yourself out of the situation, because I feel as though, this is an area where you've been really, really fighting it, or trying to fight it, trying to resolve it. Okay.
I've been trying to resolve it for a very long time, yes. And it's finally coming to a resolve as we speak. So what I want to say here is over the next 2 months, I feel like I've got a new opportunity coming in. I get a doorway opening here for you that takes you on to a much, much better environment and energy and prospects as well, because I have got financial abundance for you. Great.
Okay. So thank you very much for coming through. It's been lovely to talk to you.
Thank you.
So thank you. Bye for now. And so that's the end of my show. If you want to get hold of me, the website's www.modern-mystic.co.uk. Wishing you a wonderful week ahead, and don't forget we have that great big lunar eclipse and supermoon coming in Tuesday, Wednesday of next week. So I'll be going into that a little bit more in my next show. Okay, so bye for now. Have a great week ahead.